I'm just going to say, wow, that was really awesome. I'm grinning from ear to ear. We really got those devil's horns coming up, didn't you, Graham?
It did. So, wow, in partial eclipse sunrise in Ontario, and I mean, it literally did look like the devil rising up over the horizon. That was quite something.
And just gorgeous images coming from Ontario, there from Sudbury and North Bay. So yes, you guys did it. You did it. I'm super excited. It's just, and I'm sure they're cheering in Ontario right now, managing to beat both the clouds and technical issues and everything, and getting us these amazing images of the partial eclipse.
Absolutely. And the eclipse is starting to, the eclipse was actually sort of starting to go towards its end now, because the sun has only just come up, but the sun was rising at a roundabout maximum eclipse at those locations. So as we're looking at it now, we can actually slowly see the moon is now actually moving off the sun's disk. We have passed the maximum partial eclipse in North Bay and in Sudbury. So yeah, even as we watch these pictures, we can see the crescent of the sun getting bigger and bigger as the moon starts to move off the face of the sun.
But certainly an interesting view to look at, isn't it, Graham?
It is, yes. So the partial eclipse is now starting to wind down in northeastern North America. But as far as the annular eclipse goes, because there is this very narrow path of annularity that is running from Canada across Greenland and into Siberia, and from locations on this very narrow path, people will be able to see the moon be not just forming these devil's horns, but actually becoming perfectly silhouetted and turning the sun into a ring or an annulus shape. Literally only a few thousand people get to see this ring of fire today, because there's just so few places scattered across the Arctic that are on the path of annularity. And of course, it's very difficult to travel there at the moment because of the COVID travel restrictions. We have been very fortunate, Anna, to collaborate with Tony Rose, who is a long-time Arctic resident, and he's based in Iqaluit, which is one of these very lucky places that gets to see annularity today. We don't have telescope images, plus we're afraid to say that the weather is not great in Iqaluit, and in fact, wow, yeah, okay, here is a picture from Iqaluit. We are about 10 minutes away from annularity, so yeah, we have about 75% of the sun somewhere behind those clouds. 75% is eclipsed by the moon, and in about 10 minutes the moon will leave this ring of fire around the edge. But we're saying all this, it's all actually fairly academic at the moment, Anna, because it's all taking place behind that pretty thick looking layer of clouds in Iqaluit.
And will they notice any kind of difference? I know during a total solar eclipse when we were in Argentina, it went really dark and it was quite dramatic. But there's quite a bit of the sun left in full view, isn't it, Brian?
That's right. So, I mean, even totality during a total solar eclipse, it doesn't go completely dark. In an annular eclipse, you can still have 10% of the sun's disk is still uncovered around the edge of the moon, and that's enough light to make things very bright. Generally, the sky starts to darken during an eclipse around about the 60–70% partial eclipse mark. That's when you can notice the sky starts to darken, but the really noticeable drop in light levels on the ground, that doesn't really happen until you pass 80% partial. So in Iqaluit, may notice a slight darkening around annularity. But I mean, of course, with all these clouds, it's pretty dark anyway there. So yes, a slight darkening perhaps in Iqaluit around annularity, which is about 8 minutes away.
And what is an annular solar eclipse? At the moment, we're looking at a partial eclipse, and we really want to see annularity in Iqaluit, but I think we're going to be unlucky there. But what actually happens during an annular solar eclipse, and this annular solar eclipse?
Yeah, so as we look, we can see very clearly the moon's disk on these images from Sudbury, and you can, but it's difficult to tell, but the moon's disk, the black disk here, is just a little bit smaller than the sun's disk. There is this very amazing coincidence, Anna, that the moon is about 400 times smaller than the sun, but it's also about 400 times further away. 400 times closer than the sun. And that means that when we see the moon and the sun in the sky, they do look almost exactly the same size. The thing is that we say the moon is about 400 times closer. It changes a bit. Sometimes the moon is a bit closer to Earth. Sometimes the moon is a bit further away from Earth. Today, the moon is a bit further away, so it's looking a bit smaller than at other times, and it's not quite able to cover up all of the sun's disk.
And this eclipse itself is also quite special, isn't it? Because we've talked a little bit about partial annularity. It's a very narrow area, just skimming the top of the globe. So we actually do have a really cool graphic where we can show a little bit what it actually looks like, the shadow from the moon at the moment, where you have to be to actually see annularity.
Right. So this graphic in the top right-hand corner, this is our very rough guide to what is happening today. So this is looking at the Earth and the moon in space. The sun is somewhere way off to the left, and none of this is to scale. But we've got the Earth and the moon, and we're looking down on them. So we're looking down on the North Pole of the Earth, and we're looking down on the North Pole of the moon. We can see that the North Pole of the Earth in this diagram is slightly tilted towards the sun on the left. That's because we're coming up to the June solstice, so the North Pole is tilted towards the sun at the moment. And we can also see that there are two different shadows striking the Earth. You can see those lines coming off the moon and striking the Earth. Now these lines, these are not rays of light. These are shadows. It's kind of helpful to think about them as lines of sight. So we have that big outer fainter shadow striking the Arctic region. That's the moon's light penumbral shadow. And if you're standing anywhere there, like in Sudbury, for example, your line of sight to the sun is partially blocked by the moon. So you're seeing this partial eclipse. If you are in that very small inner shadow, we can see there's that very small inner cone sort of hitting the North Pole. Now that is the moon's antumbra, and your line of sight to the sun then, the moon is exactly lined up in the center of the sun, just leaving this ring shape around it. The one other shadow we can see on this is that dark shadow immediately to the right of the moon. That's the very darkest part of the moon's shadow. That's the umbra. If you're standing in the umbra, the moon is completely blocking all of the light from the sun, and you get a total solar eclipse. But what this diagram is showing is that the moon's not quite close enough for that dark umbral shadow to strike the Earth. So across the Arctic region, it is that very small ant-umbral shadow that is striking the globe.
And it's striking the globe on the top. And that's because we had a very special eclipse just 2 weeks ago. And for our very loyal viewers, they might have been watching us for 2 weeks ago when we were streaming a total lunar eclipse. And because are we in the middle or the end of an eclipse season right now, Graham?
Well, we're coming up towards the end of an eclipse season. So yeah, eclipses always come in pairs. You have a lunar eclipse at full moon, and then you have a solar eclipse at new moon, when the moon passes between the Earth and the sun. Now, normally, if you have a perfect alignment for one of these eclipses, then either 2 weeks before or after for the other eclipse, the alignment is normally a little bit imperfect. So you tend to have a perfect annular solar eclipse or a perfect total solar eclipse. You tend to have that accompanied by a partial or penumbral lunar eclipse. The interesting thing about this eclipse season that we're in now is that we have had 2 perfect eclipses. We had a total lunar eclipse 2 weeks ago, and we have a perfect annular eclipse today. So we have this perfect alignment twice in 2 weeks. But in order for that alignment to work twice in a fortnight, it's only just good enough. So the lunar eclipse we had 2 weeks ago, the alignment had only just started to become perfect. So we had a very, very short total lunar eclipse. Totality was just 14 minutes 2 weeks ago, which is very quick for a lunar eclipse. Today, we have this perfect alignment, but only just. As we look at the Earth and the Moon on our screen, it looks like they are aligned perfectly, but in fact, not quite perfect. The Moon is not quite level with the Earth. The Moon's shadow is not striking the equator. You have to imagine that the Moon is just slightly this side of your screen. It's just slightly above the screen. So its shadow is not striking the center of the Earth and the equator. It is just clipping the very top of the Earth across the Arctic region. So that's why this annular eclipse is being seen by so few people. It's because 2 weeks ago we had a perfect total lunar eclipse, and to have that perfect alignment again, only just possible 2 weeks later. So the ant-umbral shadow there is only just catching the very top of the northern hemisphere.
And that makes us even luckier to have all these wonderful partners helping us out all across the globe. It's very exciting to have all these people helping us bring you these beautiful images. And we've got still a lovely image going here from Sudbury in Canada, with the clouds kind of slowly passing across this crescent sun that, you could almost confuse it with the moon at the moment. So it's super fascinating to have a look at, and please don't let it go away. You can go and
we should just we should just say that 10:06 that it is now annularity in Iqaluit. We know that they've got the clouds there. I don't know if we're able to just have another quick look at Iqaluit. Just because annularity is happening there now. Unfortunately, no one's going to be able to see it behind those big clouds.
No, I'm hearing we can't get this eclipse coming up the annularity coming up. So
right.
we'll just have to know that it's happening.
Right, absolutely, yes.
But if you want to read a little bit more about Iqaluit, you can go into our live news stream. It's timeanddate.live, and you can go in there and you can read more about what an annular solar eclipse is. You can read more about eclipse seasons, and you can read more about our streaming partners. And we will see you very soon, so don't go away. And there's a beautiful image there coming in from Oslo in Norway, so we still have a lot to come. See you soon.